Good evening and welcome to tonight's DEI meeting on December 20th. We will start with a call to order and the Pledge of Allegiance, if you will join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The minutes were sent out. If you could take a minute and look them over if you haven't had a chance, and then I'll give somebody an opportunity to be okay with them, and then we'll second it and move on. Do you have enough movement to approve the minutes?
I approve.
Awesome. Thank you, Nina. And anyone to second that? Thank you, Tyann. All right. Let's see. So we will start with the reports from the subcommittee and in no particular order. And so that I can get my part out of the way, I will speak for the Community Engagement Subcommittee. We did meet on December 7th. We spent some time just kind of solidifying our future meetings so that it would stop moving around as much. We talked about divvying up going to the PTA meetings at the different buildings, especially when there's something that we want to share out or when they're interested in having us. And then we planned out our future fireside chats. We had one last month, and Leah and I, and actually also Mike Laster were there. We had one person show up to attend it. And it was a really great discussion, so I'm glad we had that. We want to make it a little bit more consistent and put all of the dates of all of the ones for the rest of the year on the poster and post them through the schools, post them through the parent, not the parent portal, blanking on the name. Post it to the parents. Yes, thank you. Parent Square had too many things. Parent portal, Parent Square. And then we also are looking at doing noon and 6:30 on some of the dates so that people who were more amenable to going during the day, because Gwen and Mary would be available at those times. And then also alternating every couple months doing a virtual one so that people who, we just wanted to really try to get it out to as many people as possible. So that was all of our brainstorming as to how to do that. And then we kind of divvied up some activities to make sure that when we do virtual ones, we're being technologically safe so that if people decide to pop in and not be good sports, we're not subject to that, and making sure that we have enough space at the library when we do host it there. So that's most of what we talked about with community engagement. Hoping maybe our next meeting we can talk about other things. Research committee, did you guys meet?
No, we did not. We're supposed to schedule our meeting for this week. For the second week in the new schedule, for the third week in the new schedule, but there was a conflict with this date. So we had moved it to the second week, which means that we weren't able to meet. And I had some follow-up to do, which I'm still processing with Nick. I was not able to get together with Nick to talk about his survey. And the other thing that we had talked about was with English language learners and how we deal with multilingual students. And I had followed up with Laura, and we're going to meet over the when we come back from break to discuss the process for those issues. She wanted to look into that herself.
Thank you, Derek. Communications subcommittee.
I'm going to report for that committee this time. We met on the 14th and also talked about fireside chats and learned that there is a 60-day in advance limit to book rooms over at the Guilderland Public Library. However, we came up with a better idea, or a very good idea, which is to include a QR code on all of our posters that will take the viewers to our website where the dates can be. And then if they need to change, it's actually better because we haven't printed posters that are going to be not accurate. Leah couldn't be on the call tonight, but I actually saw her earlier today. She's on her way with that. And I think that'll be a good solution to get the word out, including all the information that Chris shared regarding virtual, in person, daytime, evening, and so on. The other thing we spoke about was our videographer, who is traveling around the school districts to school buildings to, capture DEI events and activities. And one of the things that came out in the committee meeting is we weren't sure if all of our principals knew that if something was going on in their building, they could arrange for her to come and take footage. Since then, we've had a leadership team meeting, and I reminded everyone of that. So I think Toma will have lots of invitations to buildings to capture students doing amazing things. So we'll have a lot of footage for the video that will be put together and released sometime in the spring. And I think those are the two big things we talked about.
That sounds awesome. Thank you. And then Student Voice Subcommittee.
Student Voice Subcommittee was supposed to meet tomorrow, but I don't think we're going to be able to make that meeting because I wasn't able to get in touch with all of the students. However, we have had some focus groups this past month. What we've done is work with the Engaging Student Voices program from SUNY at the BOCES program. And we have 5 student leaders in that program, and we have student leaders on the Student Voice Committee. And we actually asked them to come in to talk about setting up. The main thing that the students kept stressing to us was the ability to have a forum to be able to communicate to each other and with us. So we brought some of the administrators together in the building to engage that conversation and to look at a few things. One of the things that we talked about was how do we want the end of this year to look, and how do we want to, because most of our student leaders are seniors, how do we want to, what event do we want to do as they move out and make sure that they leave their stamp on the school? And the other 2 things that we talked about with the students were how we can sustain a continuity of student voices. That is how we can connect the high school students with the middle school and the middle school students with the elementary schools as a way of making sure that students are hearing from other students and that they have some continuity so that the student groups, when they get to the next stage, that they're ready to and invited to participate. So we're going to continue to work on those projects, and then we're looking for a way to communicate across bands. It seems Google Classroom doesn't work because not everybody has a Gmail account, and so we're looking for ways to have dialogue offline so that people can share their insights. But we still haven't found something that everyone has access to. So we're probably going to do something creative with the Google Suite to make it more interactive so that we can, people who can't contribute on the nights that we do have meetings can still be part of the conversation and contribute resources and let us know their perspective.
Thank you, Derek. So that is all of our subcommittees. Moving on, next would be back to you for DEI and, Mr. Laster. Mike.
Sorry, 2 thoughts for consideration for the group. Fireside chats in buildings next year to highlight some of the work, like including tours for people, just tossing it out there. And then the other thing that Derek, you made me think of in terms of the continuity K-12, could we do like some type of K-12 mentorship program? So like middle school mentoring elementary, high school mentoring middle school, in the lens of DEI. I don't know. I just think that the message coming from peers is more powerful sometimes coming from adults.
Definitely.
I'm going to raise my hand even though I can call them myself. I like that because I was actually planning on reaching out to the Alliance at the high school and seeing if they would maybe like make some messages for I have a very solid 6th grade presence in the Alliance this year. So some messages as we grow those into moving into high school. So I would love to see more partnership across grade levels.
I think secondary, it's easy, right? Because we have those groups, we have those clubs, we have those organizations already that we can tap. I think the difficulty will be K-5. How do we push it down K-5? And that's I think what I'm concerned about in terms of my lens of kids coming in from K-5. The habits, the behaviors, the language, all that already is established. So we need to figure out how to do something, I think, a little bit more focused K-5.
Nice. Cool. So if we're ready to go on to the DEI in action, that's you, I think, Derek. You're muted.
Sorry, I should have used 2 screens. We were pretty busy this past month. Leah and I both joined a high school student forum on November 30th. Had a great conversation with the students. We also, as I mentioned earlier, the Elevating Student Voices program that we have with BOCES, we attended that on December 4th. That was December 12th. But on December 4th is where we had the student forums with the Elevating Student Voices leaders and some of our student voices. Our students who are on the Student Voice Committee and DEI came in and were able to sit down with myself, a lot of the high school staff, communications team, and talk about some of the ways that we can help them out and what some of the issues that they were seeing and how we were going to address those. We also had presentations on December 6th on the December dilemma at I was at Gittleland Elementary School and Leah was at Westmere, and we sort of tag teamed and did presentations at the school on how to manage the holidays. More on that a little bit later when we have our discussion in the learning portion. Leah had joined the Asian Student Association meetings, student union meetings on December 5th and the 19th to talk with those students and to hear from them. I joined the Civil Conversations Club meeting on December 5th, and Leah also joined them at a later date on the 7th to just see how students were communicating with each other and watching Mitch Hahn do his thing with the students, and was an excellent experience for both of us. Leah went to Westmere's Winterfest on December 13th, and she thought that was a really special event, and the students really, showed a little bit of Westmere's culture and how that time of year, that tradition is really popular and well received there, and the kids had a lot of fun. We've been working, Leah and I have also been working with Linwood's equity team. We met with them twice this month, including today, to help them launch their book study that they're going to be doing with the book Blind Spot. So they're ramping up to launch that to their staff, and they're doing a really great job of preparing. Leah and I also presented at the middle school GEMS program on December 15th. We did a nice discussion about how the brain processes information, how that can influence our pedagogy, how we teach, and how we get students' attention, hold it, and make sure that they've learned material. It was a good opening discussion. We're looking to go back and do that again we did it for second year on cohort. We were probably going to do it with the first years again, and maybe do a part 2 with the group we spoke to this December. Leah is also working with Jody Cahill and Susan Kavanaugh on a math project, and she'll be joining their classes over the next couple days. So that has been our December. It's very busy, but very enjoyable work.
Seriously, Derek, don't like take too much time to yourself or anything. It sounds like you've just been sitting around and doing nothing. That's awesome. Next would be our equity action plan update. I think that's you, Marie.
Yep, that's me. So we have a meeting of our 7 building equity action teams scheduled for January 31st. That's a Wednesday. We're going to meet from 4 to 7, only because it's just too difficult to secure enough substitutes to cover all those folks being out of the building for a full day. So we're going to gather at the LGI from 4 to 7. We'll bring in some dinner. We're going to offer in-service credit. 2 big purposes of the meeting. One is to give teams an opportunity to share progress so far this year. Teams haven't been together since last year, so that'll be part of the work. We'll also be sharing a draft district level equity action plan that we're going to get some feedback on, so that we have that coherent district level direction, focus, and so on. And then time permits, the teams will have a little bit of work time to figure out what are some of their next steps from there. So that's coming up on the 31st of January, which will be here before you know it. If there are no questions, I have another topic I want to get in before we get to our learning piece. Thanks to Mike Laster and some PTA members and some other administrators who have been looking at this, we will be hosting Chris Vollum in our district to talk about healthy approaches to using social media. And we have him coming on the week in March when we have this meeting, and actually on the Wednesday night, which is March 20th, he's going to be doing a parent presentation. I'm not sure if we're doing it at the high school or the middle school at this point. We're working out those logistics. But that conflicts with our March large DEI meeting. So I think there'll be a lot of people who may want to go and hear him. He's terrific. He was here back in 2016, Mike. Is that the last time he was here? Was very well received. Met with faculty, students, parents. We tried to get him here in between, but he couldn't get across the border of Canada for a while there during the pandemic. So anyway, he's going to be here. So I would like to propose that we move our DEI large committee meeting from Wednesday the 20th to Thursday the 21st. I looked at the district calendar. There's no other big events that night. So let me just throw it out there as a first blush, and then we can obviously communicate. It's still, several weeks away. Anyone see any issues with that, or any worries, concerns, problems? Oh, I see a thumbs up.
Marie, can you please repeat the date?
Yes, it's March. We would move it to March 21st. So we're currently scheduled for March 20th, which is the Wednesday. We would just move one day later to Thursday, and you would absolutely hear from Mrs. Sim about this probably tomorrow or the next day, and then going forward. Okay, that's great. I think it's a great opportunity. Chris, did I see your hand go up and then down?
No, I was looking for the thumbs up. Sorry.
Oh, okay. All right, that's all I have. Thanks.
Okay, so thank you for that. That's the end of our equity action plan update. We're just going really fast through this today. So that brings us to the learning component, which there was a lot of really enjoyable opportunities to access this content. So Derek, what would you like to talk about now?
Okay, well, there are several things that were shared, a couple of videos, a resource, and an article and a resource. This discussion came out of what we call the December dilemma, and that's the notion of celebrating holidays in public school around this time. This is a time of year, not that we don't celebrate holidays all year round, but this is a time when it's really focused and apparent that people are celebrating the holidays, and there's a debate that happens about what we should be celebrating during this time, what shouldn't we be celebrating, how do we go about doing this. Leah and I were asked to go to the elementary schools, two of the elementary schools, to talk about these issues and to speak about some of the concerns that some of the teachers had. Along with this, we gave them some guidance. Let me see if I can share my screen. Okay. We gave them this guidance. This source is called the A Racial Justice Guide to the Winter Holiday Season. And we let them scroll through all of the lesson plans and reading lists and things that were there and pick one that stood out to them, read it, and then they were able to give feedback on a Padlet, and it was the basis for part of our discussion. So it was useful for the time that we did that. So we wanted to share that resource with you. But before we go further, I think I should share, I gave two videos to get your feedback to. The first one is a more, it's made by a DEI December Dilemma committee. I mean, a committee that really was responding to the holiday. It's pretty straightforward. So I'd like to share that one and get your responses to it. And then after that, there's one that's a little bit more sensationalistic that sort of draws up some of the drama, but these are some of the discussions that people are having in and around schools and things that do come up. So I wanted to get your feedback on both of those perspectives. So let me play the first one. I'm presenting.
This time of year, I always get asked the questions. What are the kids getting from Santa? Are you ready for Christmas? Over the years, I've mastered the art of deflecting these questions because I'm not Christian and I don't celebrate Christmas. To me, these questions are microaggressions because they highlight the fact that I'm part of some other group and not in the majority. Now, don't get me wrong. There are many things I love about this time of year. The lights, the festivities, the spirit of giving and recognizing others, just to name a few. So to me, Happy Holidays is a reasonable expression that encapsulates all of those things. But in the spirit of equity and inclusiveness, it might also be helpful to remember that we can wish others happiness on days of celebration that are meaningful to them, but might not be Christmas. Not sure how? Snap this QR code to get a resource about the December dilemma and ways you can share cheer with your colleagues. Thanks for listening to this message that was brought to you by your EDI committee, and happy holidays.
I'm sorry. Sorry about that. It jumped to the next video. Sorry about that. Okay. What are some of your reactions to that initial video? Oh, Sharia.
I can sort of relate to her because, like, in the past, I've been asked by like teachers, and especially right after like Christmas. I personally don't celebrate Christmas like culturally or traditionally, like just for fun, you know. So it's not the same experience. So I've never been able to like relate to other people like and like the ways they've celebrated Christmas. So I've had this like I've never had that like connection, which sort of made me feel weird in a way. But I mean, as I've grown older, I didn't really think much about it. Like when I was younger, I didn't really understand that Christmas was like a Christian holiday. But I mean, that doesn't mean that you can't celebrate it if you're not Christian. You could celebrate it for fun if you'd like. But like it impacted me more when I was younger. But I remember this one thing we used to do at my old school, which was kind of cool. Like for Thanksgiving, I don't celebrate Thanksgiving with my family, but at that school we had like a Thanksgiving lunch together, and it was sort of cool because I've never like experienced that before. So like I think we should definitely celebrate holidays at school, but not just like one holiday or like not stick to the religious aspect of it, but maybe like the fun aspect, I guess. Like one of my physics teachers, she dressed up as an elf today and it was so cute. And like she always has like these fun decorations in her room, which is like super welcoming. So I think like things like that are like totally fine. But then like I don't know, it just always gets me when people ask me questions like, oh, like how was Christmas dinner with your family? I'm just like it's just a normal day for me, because I don't really celebrate Christmas. So yeah.
Thank you for sharing and being bold enough to start first. Anyone else have reactions? Varshini.
Just going off of what Shreya said, I remember in elementary school especially it affected me when people asked, like, how did you celebrate Christmas? Did you put up a Christmas tree? Because my parents never did any of that. And I just remember feeling pressured ever since then to be like, yeah, I do celebrate Christmas. And I forced my parents to buy me a Christmas tree, and I forced them to get me gifts. And I was just like I wanted to be a part of the American Christmas culture so badly. I remember that really affected me as a young kid in like at Pine Bush. But like Shreya said, I think the holiday aspect is such an integral part of everyone's lives. Like just the Christmas spirit, not the religious part of it. So I think it's okay to like the elf thing. I think that's totally fine. But when it's like young kids, I think asking about how did you celebrate Christmas is just, I relate to the woman in that video. Just want to say.
Nina.
Yeah, I think we have to also take into consideration like a regional aspect. I don't know if it's necessarily the case that everywhere you go, it's the same quantity or emphasis. And I think that, to assume that it's an American custom rather than a Christmas holiday, I think also depends on where you live and the culture that is dictated by that area. I think that, that's definitely a factor involved. And I think that we have to just keep in mind to what extent it becomes, an endorsement of something rather than a celebration. That's the fine line that, we have to balance. And, there's a very blurred line, I think, at times. And if students are feeling the way Varshini articulated, then it might be going beyond that point, because it's not necessarily an American holiday. It's a Christian holiday that's become commercialized, but it is a Christian holiday. So I think, we have to look at the very root of that, and the region where it's being focused on is definitely significant.
I'm sorry, that was taken into account. Thank you for sharing. Now, Chris, you had something else to add?
I think it'll probably come up in the next video, but just like I feel like more is more. So instead of taking away the opportunities to say like, Christmas, because whilst Christmas is a Christian holiday in origin, the way elves have nothing to do with the story of the Bible and all that good stuff, and neither does Santa Claus, and neither do Christmas trees. And there's so much complexity over this one particular holiday when you consider that it was dropped solidly on a pagan holiday, and there's so many other holidays during the season. I feel like teachers feel really uncomfortable because they don't know what to say. They don't want to say Merry Christmas because they don't want to offend people who don't celebrate Christmas. And I'm solidly in the season's greetings camp because there's so many holidays or happy holidays. You know, we have a Jewish holiday in the same time frame. We have solstice tomorrow, which is a big one for some of us. That's a really positive holiday. There's a lot of stuff going. There's others as well. There's lots of holidays going on at the same time. I really wish that we could encapsulate all of those and find ways to celebrate everybody who's in our school district, because there are lots of folks who celebrate Christian Christmas as opposed to consumerist Christmas, which is the American Christmas of gifts and all that stuff. That the presents aren't the point. And then there's folks who are doing Hanukkah, which is another gift time, but also celebrates a really important time of their calendar. And I don't know, I just wish we could move towards more. I want to know how to celebrate everybody's celebrations in the same time frame. And I really like the second video, which we haven't gotten to yet, and I'm jumping ahead totally because it's a very sensational, and it's exactly like, are people really mad, or they just want to be included in the conversation and to have their beliefs celebrated as well? And then you think about the teacher's perspective or the educator's perspective, the people in the buildings who just want to know, well, what do I say to you? Like, how do I say happy, as we get further into the year, what's the right thing to say about Ramadan? Or about Eid and things like that. I want to say it correctly. So that's, as an educator, where I'm at.
Definitely. Seema?
I was just going to kind of build on Chris's comment about it being complex. I think what Shreya and Varshini said were really important, because I think there's people talk about the war on Christmas and getting angry if somebody says Merry Christmas, but I don't necessarily think everybody feels that way. It's just a recognition that there are other people who may not celebrate the holiday, but also want to feel like also part of the group and not feel excluded. So there's a spectrum, I think, of what that could be, but I'm also in the camp of where, if you don't know, and if somebody says Merry Christmas, I happen to celebrate Christmas, but if I were to say that versus Happy Holidays or something, I would hope that nobody would be offended. But I understand that there are, I guess, different responses to that. And so I don't know, I haven't seen the second video, so I'm really curious because it sounds touching. So.
All right. Time.
I just thought what the two students mentioned was really.
Well, then somebody's fading out. Tyann, I know you had your hand up.
Yes. I wanted to kind of go off of Chris too. Like, I feel like some teachers in schools have already started to transition to teaching about all the different holidays. Like, I know my son came home from preschool today with a passport that he traveled around the world and learned all about these different holidays. So that's starting at the pre-K level. That incorporates all the holidays all around the world. That's kind of what we did at my school too. Like, we had a door decorating contest and the theme was holidays around the world. So my students learned all about, I teach math specifically. So we did math based on the holidays around the world, and they decorated the door and they were able to say what holiday they wanted to put on there that they celebrate, which is really cool.
All right, Tamika.
Yeah, and just reflecting on what Chris and Seema were saying, I think it's really important too, where acknowledging what people do and or what they may not celebrate, but also, expecting the same respect, so to speak. So I know with, where I work with my staff, I gift during the holidays, and I make it my business to state, even if you do not celebrate any of the holidays that are happening right now, here's a little something just because it's my tradition, right? And during your holiday, I want to learn more. And I do have a very diverse staff. It's part of my program. Everyone has different, shades and backgrounds and education differences. So, and, cultural differences. So I think it's very, really important. And we kind of allow each other, and we're respectful of each other, the days off, the holidays, acknowledging one another, and allowing us to just share our joy. Because at the end of the day, I think during the holidays, for most holidays, it's a joyous moment, and being able to share that with people, whether they celebrate it or not, I think it's an important recognition, and it's just something I think we all look forward to, no matter what we're celebrating.
Excellent. Mike, you had your hand up, I see.
Thanks, Derek. One question is the resources that you shared with the faculty. I'm wondering if we could do that K-12. Like some type of newsletter in terms of not just because I think it was that resource that you shared was awesome, but I think all teachers K-12 could get that. I don't know if we could do some kind of like K-12 email. The other question I have is I think we need to think about in terms of holidays, can we provide guidance for school calendar implications? Okay, because when events are being scheduled, I think we need to be cognizant of when those events are being scheduled so we can be respectful of the holidays that are, throughout the year. We had an instance a few years ago where during Ramadan, we scheduled a after school ice cream social, which automatically precluded, like a bunch of kids couldn't come. Immediately afterwards, we were like, okay, we need to think about this moving forward. So I just think that as we have this conversation, K-12, the calendar implications have to also be part of it.
Okay, Chris, you just thumbs upping? Or...
That came up last year with an athletics calendar issue where there were athletes who weren't able to participate in meets because they were scheduled during Jewish holidays, and that's a significant issue. We never anticipate having a track meet on Easter. So,
and athletics are bigger because it's Section 2, right? It's above just our system. So, I mean, we can control what we can control, but I just think that if we're serious about having this conversation, there's so many holidays over the course of a school calendar year that we need to think about what are the implications on kids when we do that. When we observe those or when we recognize those. And there are some things that we can control, like I said, and there are some things we can't. Section 2, we can't control.
Well, it's tough too, because whilst we might collect data about students' ethnicities and backgrounds, we don't collect data on their religions. So some holidays are ethnic and some holidays are religious. And I don't know that we have a really accurate picture of the religions that are captured in our district.
You're right, and part of this is do what we can where we can. There's always going to be those misses or the things that fall beneath the cracks. My predecessor Matt had a calendar out where he had, and I think it's still up on the website, where that has a lot of the holidays listed. And he used to do emails as a resource for teachers, and we have to revisit that or think about that. We've also been talking about putting together a resource page on the intranet so that it's available to everybody, K through 12. We don't have a presence there yet. We obviously have the DEI page on the public site, but we don't have it on our intranet, which might be a useful place to start building out resources for folks at the schools at all levels, so they're basically getting the same information and privy to the same discussions. So you're absolutely right on that. I do see one more hand, Bianca.
I just want to.
Sorry, I'm reading it wrong.
That's okay. I just want to echo what Mike Laster said and also say, in terms of sports, we also, I think, need to readdress having practices on holidays. Last year, we had our students tell us that, and I think they graduated already, but that, if you miss a practice, sometimes you can't play. And also that even if you are able to play, missing the practice puts you at a disadvantage and it makes you feel, stressed out or like you're not part of the group, like you're missing something. And so I feel like that's kind of an unfair pressure and we're perpetuating that because I know for a fact that there have been practices on Jewish holidays where people are fasting, for example, just a couple months ago, and other ones. So I just think we need to relook at that commitment or recommit and ask that of our coaches.
Yeah.
I just,
Oh,
oops.
I'm sorry. Seema.
I just wanted to quickly add, because I know Tyann put this in the chat about sharing the calendar with the PTAs. I think that would be good because I think it was this past year that one of the elementary schools had their like event that had to do like food, etc. Or they had an event in the evening and it fell on a Jewish holiday, but I think they thought because it wasn't like school was still happening that day, but the actual holiday I think fell on a weekend, but when the holiday started is really the evening before. And so that was, so when the PTA put it together, I don't think there was any ill intention, but it was just a lack of maybe knowing that that's when it started. So maybe sharing that with the PTA would also be helpful. Thanks, Tyann, for sharing that or bringing that up.
Excellent. Thank you all. Julianne, this is awesome participation.
Hi. I just wanted to respond to the sports piece. I'm a 3-season coach at Guilderland. The director of athletics, Dave Austin, at each and every meeting for every single season always talks to the coaches about being very mindful about scheduling practices and letting him know if there is a game or a contest or a meet that lands on a holiday so that they can do their best to kind of reach out to the other Section 2 school, attempt to reschedule it. So I can say like there is definitely discussion happening at those athletics meetings, and there is absolutely advocacy about like for coaches to be very mindful about it. Mr. Austin has also said that all the coaches could never ever make any practices mandatory that are on any holiday, whether that's a cultural holiday or a religious holiday, that those always have to be optional practices. And as far as saying that, we shouldn't hold practices on like a Jewish holiday or another holiday it gets to a point where it can interfere with the training process. Like there are so many different holidays and so many different days that are important and valuable to different cultures and different religions. It gets to a point that if we didn't practice on every single one of those, it would really impact the quality of our athletic provision that we're providing to kids. And it is a balance because it is public high school sports. It's not college. It's not professional. Like we need to keep in mind what we're trying to accomplish with our kids. But at the same time, a lot of these kids are working really hard and have big athletic goals. And we want to support that. We want to support these kids who are, pouring themselves into their athletics and have big goals. We want to be supportive of our sport programs that are trying to accomplish big things. And so sometimes it is tough, but I can speak for myself and the coaches that I coach with. We would absolutely never give an athlete a difficult time or do any kind of making them feel like their playtime or their placement on the team or even how we regard them as their commitment to the team would never be impacted by missing a practice due to whether it's a religious holiday, a culture holiday, or even just something that's important to their family. I mean, we have kids who come to us and say, it's my grandmother's 95th birthday. And we were say, oh, of course, absolutely, you need to be there. Like, of course you can miss practice. But yeah, so that's just my response to that.
Cool. Varshini.
With Asian Student Union, holidays is like one of our main things. We try to celebrate a holiday twice a month. We tried to create a calendar too, but it kind of got hard because there's so many, and I think having the staff take on that role would be a good idea. We even had a point where for every holiday we would post on Classroom and say, happy this, happy that, and then that got hard too because there's so many and we don't want to like disinclude anyone accidentally. But we tried to do that because we don't hear it in the normal calendar or during the normal school days. So I think having this like pushed into the regular calendar would be a good idea.
Excellent. Thank you. Bianca, yes.
Thanks, Derek. So it's actually Blanca, right? White in
Oh, I'm
Spanish.
sorry. I am reading it
okay.
wrong every time.
That's okay. I've been called Blanche as well. So I just wanted to thank Julianne for saying that. I think for her response, I think it was thoughtful. I definitely think that the majority of our coaches are doing everything they can. My children have never had a negative experience. So as a parent, I have always appreciated that. But I have to keep pushing forward what the students said last year and take it seriously. And so I still bring it to our attention today because it did again happen this fall where there was a practice on one of the fasting holidays.
All right. Now, the reason we bring up the December dilemma in the first place is because it is very difficult for public schools, teachers, students, faculty, and administrators to strike that balance. And sometimes we need help in having these conversations because we're moving from, some people may not be aware, so we have some awareness issues. Some people want to just appreciate and learn about different holidays. Some people want to celebrate and have fun, and others, want to celebrate their ethnic or religious holidays full bore. And we have to figure out, how do we strike the balance between all these communities of people at different times during the year trying to do this. And this is the great December dilemma, because that's the time of year where we see so many religious holidays converging at once. We see so many, so much emphasis on celebrations at this particular time of year. But again, this is year round. There are other holidays throughout the year, federal holidays, other things that we need to pay attention to and strike this balance. And in light of all of that, schools do not exist in a vacuum, and there is a popular culture out there that is, influencing these conversations. And I wanted to share some of that because I wanted you just to have a sense of some of the discussions that have gone on outside of the educational circles on these same topics. So the video that Chris has been waiting for, we will show that to you and move on from there. Hold on one second.
I wish I could say the same for the kids at this St. Paul, Minnesota elementary school.
Goodbye, Cupid. Ta-ta, Turkey. And so long, Santa Claus. Ho, ho, no. That's what kids at a St. Paul elementary school are hearing after the school's principal banned so-called dominant holidays, stating such festivities, quote, suppress someone else's view. Shelving Santa and other holidays has left some parents dazed and just plain outraged, while others applaud the decision. Elsewhere, the nearby district has banned celebrating, get this, birthdays. Has political correctness gone too far? Or is it all in the name of equality?
Wow. If they're doing this because they're saying that they're doing this to try to encourage diversity. It seems to me like if you were encouraging diversity, you would celebrate more instead of less. Celebrate Hanukkah, celebrate Ramadan, celebrate Christmas. Christmas, celebrate all of them so the kids get a nice cross-cultural perspective. I mean, can you imagine what life's going to be like now? The kids don't come with that hand-drawn turkey anymore, or their Valentine's gifts for their parents.
Box that you're.
Yes.
But also, I think, there's no reason not to celebrate more rather than less. And I mean,
so you're educating and you're learning more about different cultures,
you're becoming
religions,
more tolerant
customs.
too. Yes,
100%.
absolutely. So I, it's a public school, so I guess he's going off of the idea of these are their public school holidays, the rest of them don't really matter. But I would encourage them to consider, being more inclusive and just letting everybody's holidays be celebrated instead of less holidays.
Well, I guess this principal did this sort of unilaterally. I think he's going to hear from the community and the parents.
Well, I think, I think he has. Obviously, there are always going to be people on various sides of the fence. And I don't think that this was put into place with malintent.
No.
It's just, we live in an interesting time where anything you do is we've talked about this, it's so easy to offend someone. And I think that it is important to be careful and cognizant of these things. And in the past, we probably weren't as good in school of celebrating anyone and everyone. And I think if nothing else, it starts a nice national conversation. But hey, let the kids celebrate.
I agree.
Okay, are we back? All right. What are some thoughts? Again, this doesn't happen in a vacuum, right? Oh, I see some hands. Mike.
So the role of a principal involves 50% of the stakeholders not agreeing with your decision. And that's the reality of the job. And right now, the polarization of public education has forced my role as a principal to be more. I've had more parents question the decision-making of the school than I've ever had before. And that's my belief in the polarization of public education.
Most definitely. Chris.
Whenever we think about holidays, I kind of wish there was more opportunities for like world religion and culture classes in public schools so that kids could be exposed to all of the holidays and all the real stories of the holidays. Because when we just passed Thanksgiving, but I kind of think that when I think of holidays that could potentially have very sensational news stories, I think of Thanksgiving because, here's a holiday where we celebrate it in one way, where we tell a story about pilgrims and Native Americans and all this beautiful stuff, where the actual roots of the holiday is actually quite dark and quite bleak. And we don't teach that part to students, at least not until they reach maybe 7th grade and probably not really until 11th grade. When we get into U.S. history and government, we touch on it. We've added some holidays. We're really kind of pushing, and I'm really proud of our district for, Juneteenth became, widely celebrated, and that's exciting. And then Eid adding into the calendar. So kind of exposing students to like, maybe a student asks, hey, why do we have this day off? And it starts a great conversation. But why can't we talk about what does Ramadan celebrate and what does Hanukkah celebrate? And I think there's a lot of fear about having those conversations because they touch into religion, but you can have a conversation about religion without proselytizing. And I don't know that people are confident in towing that line, and not having people go to Mr. Laster after, you have that conversation. I've had students, I had a great conversation with students and their parents about Jehovah's Witnessing this year and what that means. And I had one a couple of years ago about Ramadan, and I'm always learning. And I think students really want to learn about these things.
Definitely. Tamika.
Michael, I can empathize with you. I understand you're in a very different position, and I get it. I come from a time where, and I'm aging myself, the principal was still allowed to paddle us if we misbehave. So, times are very different, probably for a good reason. But, I think it does boil down to the school is ultimately the child's place of refuge and learning. And I have 3 children. I stay out of it as much as I possibly can, outside from being on the school board. But as far as their education is concerned and the rules that are present in the school, they're there for a reason. And I respect the people that put those, enforce those rules for a reason, because I understand the school system and how it's structured, and that is their structure for the day. Thank you so much for giving my children structure throughout the day. When they come home, it's a different type of structure. However, but diversity, equity, and inclusion doesn't mean stripping someone of that inclusivity and understanding. It means giving them as much information as they possibly can and allowing them to just immerse themselves in it from an educational standpoint. And that means, what do other people celebrate? What are their religions? What does it mean? Where, different parts of the world. Otherwise, we end up in a, repeating the mistakes over and over and over again. We're in such a colonized society that we get one-sided variable, like just one-sided, perception, and nothing else matters. And it's just, it's completely opposite of what we're trying to achieve in schools, period.
Yes, Nina.
Yeah, Mike, it makes me sad to hear that. I think the polarization factor is something that teachers feel as well. For the first time, it's been very difficult to talk about issues of all different types as a social studies teacher. And the restrictions that have emerged in the last, 4 years, 6 years, 8 years, whatever we're looking at, about that, 6 years, have made for a different climate in our country. And I think that goes beyond the holiday discussion. I think that on one hand, it's good for people to feel empowered. On the other hand, it can also be a tricky thing to navigate. In terms of what I was trying to say before, I think one way to describe it from a different perspective is that when you look at how the fact that Christmas is looked at as an American holiday represents the lens of the history of Christianity. And I'm going to just say this, but the idea of representing the holiday is something that really, from a historical standpoint, is how Christianity has emerged. Not all religions are as equally inclined to broadcast it. The length of time that Christmas decorations are up is much longer than other holidays. And I think that those types of things, and that's just a cultural thing, and I respect those who feel that that's an important thing to do. But I think the mindset of what's good for me would be good for all isn't always the case. And I think that's something to keep in mind, and not everyone is aware of that fact. That I want to do this for my holiday, so everyone should do it for their holiday, isn't always the case. Right? It's kind of like what the true golden rule is, right? Do unto others how they would like to have done to them, not necessarily how you would like to do to yourself. And I think that's something that how the holiday dilemma needs to also be considered of. Like I've had festive sweater days and not worn a festive sweater day, and someone said to me, "Where's yours?" And then, "Don't you have a Laka one?" As if I would like to wear, as if that's what I should be wearing. And it was, to me, somewhat of a microaggression, somewhat. And, then the response by another person was, "Oh, I didn't know you were Jewish. Like, I didn't tell you that," And I think that we have to understand that what might be comfortable for us, because we think it's just the way it is, isn't necessarily for all. So this is the dilemma that I see it as, right? Like, I think we need to acknowledge everyone, but also realize that just because I want it this way, does that mean that everyone wants it the way I want it? And I think it's just important to say that, like, we don't leave menorahs out beyond the 8 days. They come out on Hanukkah and they go away after 8 days. And I'm not saying that Christmas should be the same. It shouldn't, because that's not how those who celebrate wish to celebrate it. But it's something just to keep in mind as part of it. I don't know how Diwali works. I don't know if Diwali is something that's just during Diwali you put lights out. That's beautiful. But I don't know how long of a time the duration is appreciated. That's beyond my knowledge of it. And I think, we talk about schools teaching these things, but they have to be taught by those who are aware. because I wouldn't feel comfortable teaching a holiday that I don't know much of. I would like to learn about it, but who's to say that the students who celebrate Ramadan in my classroom want me talking about it? They may rather that I didn't, they may not, they may be feeling hungry and not want to talk about it. I don't know. I just feel like we need to just understand the perspective of others and not just what's good for me. It must be good for them.
Definitely. In my administrative training in higher ed and student affairs, one of the things they used to always tell us was time, place, and manner. They're all important. We all agree these things should take place, but the time, place, and manner in which these things are done makes all the difference. And it's important, as we approach these things, Nina, you're absolutely right, that we all agree we should come together, that whole why can't we get along type of, we can, but in order to do that, everyone has to speak in their voice and have their voice heard. The true value of inclusion is seeing the value that each and every voice brings to the table and allowing people to speak in their voice. And that's why we encourage people to use their voices. That's why we talk about elevating student voices, but giving people that opportunity to share and feel comfortable sharing in these spaces. Otherwise, even though we may be well-intentioned, these things can fall apart, right? The December and this holiday season, everybody's saying, well, this is a time where people should be able to come together. But if it's not handled correctly, it can really drive wedges between people and splinter people apart and polarize us even more. So this is part of the reason we brought up this conversation and brought it to everybody's eyes. There are resources that were shared that have very different views, interesting views on the holidays and how to celebrate them, give different types of guidance. And each of them can be discussed on a number of different levels. So that will hopefully be helpful. But yeah, everybody is approaching this, from their place in space, who they are as individuals, who they are as part of social groups, including their professional responsibilities, and as human beings trying to figure this thing out. So I thank everyone for their participation. This is probably the most participation we've had in a conversation, which tells me that these issues are very strongly felt by everyone in the room. So thank you for your participation and speaking up and sharing your points of view. There are plenty of notes that I took that I will be taking into conversations moving forward, and things that we want to make sure that we touch base on as we develop. Are there any other questions or comments that people want to make before we close this session? Because I know we are like a few minutes over time. All right, Chris, do you want to close this out?
It's been lovely having this chat with everybody tonight. So if no one has anything else to say, I will adjourn this meeting for tonight. We're all good. Do I have a thumbs up from everybody? Going with that.
Definitely.
Oh, Blanca?
No, that was my thumbs up.
That was your thumbs up. You did the same thing I did. Do I have a second for her thumbs up and or a hand? I see Derek. So we are all set, and everybody have a wonderful every kind of holiday that we celebrate throughout this time. I will be enjoying solstice tomorrow.
Thank you for sharing your voices. This is what DEI is all about.
Thank you, everyone.
Take care.
Take care.
Get some rest.